So it's time to get working on my E30 again. What I figured I would do today is depressurize the system, the fuel system, and drop the gas tank. I do have suspicions that my gas tank is rusty to go along with the rest of my rusty car. A few years back when I was living in California, I would have to park the car, I guess, pitched on a hill towards the driver's side. And I did notice a puddle of gas that would come out of the car. I didn't have any time or places to work on the car at that time, so I took it to an independent shop where they actually found some old fuel lines and replaced the fuel filter for me. I never really felt too confident in that repair fixing all of the issues. So what I did was just never fill the car up over half a tank, because I think that half a tank is where it was leaking out of the seam of the gas tank. So really what I want to do today is get rid of that fuel tank, check it out, see how bad it was. Eventually I would like to replace the tank, replace the lines. This is an early model, so it has the smaller gas tank. So I don't know yet, but I might decide going to the larger tank is worth it. But yeah, I got to get the tank out of the way to replace it. And then obviously I want to do some welding of some of the rust on the car that's in that area. So I want to get a lot of that system out of the way, so I don't have to worry about gas near my welding or just kind of having more parts in the way as I'm replacing body panels. So yeah, overall, I don't think it's that involved of a job. I think it might be tricky just because there's going to be a lot of super rusty bolts and hopefully nothing's too seized on there. But yeah, time to start, like I said, depressurizing the system and getting into this job. It's been a while since I've had the car on, so I had to put the battery on a trickle charger to get some juice back in it. All I've ever done in the past to depressurize the fuel system is pull out this green 30 amp right in here. It's position 11. So we'll pop that out and then I guess crank the car a few times. It obviously won't start without the fuel pump fuse in there, and then we'll be good to go. Obviously, I've done this a few times. It looks like my dad's handwriting saying that the fuel pump fuse goes in this holder when we're not using it. Like I said, just gonna crank it a few times to get any depressurized fuel out of the system. Should know, I've already removed the exhaust. I don't know what kind of noise it's gonna make, but open headers at this point. Didn't have enough juice in the battery, but maybe one time is enough. I don't know if there's a right or wrong order, but basically I want to take care of all of the hoses and clamps that are under the access door before dropping the tank, or I guess really getting the car on jack stands. So we're gonna focus on that first. You can see my carbon fiber part from before is kind of holding up nicely. Obviously it's covered up most of the time, but still in there, looking good. So there's a lot in here. Obviously 2 sensors. I don't really know what they are. I would imagine one's probably to drive the pump and maybe one for the fuel level sensor. And then it looks like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clamps to get off, and they're the stupid little ear ones, but I have these, what are they called? Nit picks? I don't know. For ear clamps. So we'll use these, snap them loose, and I'll have to get new clamps to put back on, obviously, but yeah, start working on this. Easy. 2 for 2. Everything looks pretty good. I don't know. Tank on top looks nice, but I know at those seams it's going to be a whole different story. Got some paper towels just in case I make a mess. The lines look pretty good on top. We're gonna replace them in the end, but I guess everything except for this, I don't know, braided furry line that comes in, everything looks like it hasn't deteriorated yet. All right, I was definitely using these wrong. I thought they were supposed to just kind of cut through the clamps, but the clamps were just kind of wedged on itself. So you use these to kind of pry the two pieces apart. So it helped with some of the later ones. All of the clamps are off. The hoses are still on for now. I think lowering the tank a little bit, maybe that's why it's done in a different order. Lowering the tank a little bit will help to scoot the hoses off of where they attach. We'll get the car back up in the air, and then I'll have to drop the drive shaft to be able to get the tank out because my subframe is staying in place for now. Started getting some of the shields off that were back near the gas tank. Now it looks pretty rusty, but honestly, it's solid and it's a lot better than I thought it was. And then we have this larger shield which covers the drive shaft up through the car. Now I did drop the drive shaft to do my engine swap a handful of years ago, and I can say I honestly do not remember this panel being in there at all. So I have no recollection really of this panel. I'm surprised that I even put it back in when I did that. But yeah, everything came out pretty easy. Not an ad, but powered it off with some Milwaukee power tools and got these rusty bolts right out of the way. Well, I have my drain plug here. Almost looks like a little bit of a dent in the gas tank, but I'm gonna just spray it with some PB Blaster. It doesn't look too corroded, but I definitely don't want to round out that hole. Got my Allen socket here, so a nice tight fit. We'll spray it down and then get a bucket ready to catch whatever gas comes out. Car's not really high enough to use a bucket. Got my oil pan. Use that to catch whatever gas is in there. Should be a lot, which is going to be unfortunate, but we'll work through it. Oh, that's gonna round off. Well, guess we're dropping it with the gas in it. So the rear drive shaft bolts, 3 of them came off nicely. This last one has been an absolute bear to get off, but what I figured out to do, I get my wrench on there and then basically using leg power, I was able to break it loose, and then, because I can only get like a quarter of a turn, got to do some brake dancing, get under the car, we'll reset it, and we'll kick it again. I think a couple more spins around on the ground like this, and it should be probably loose enough that I'll just be able to work it from underneath of the car. Yeah, that's feeling a lot easier. What a pain. So this will be the last drive shaft bolt on the rear. Haven't gotten any on the front. I've loosened the support in the middle, so it's not like this is gonna fall down when I get this out, but the back's gonna be pretty loose. I think I probably can hopefully get away without doing the ones in the front. I think just lowering the middle support, having these off, if I can scoot it past the subframe, it'll clear enough room for the gas tank to come down. There we go. All 4 of those out of the way. Okay, maybe I got one step ahead of myself. I probably shouldn't have taken all of the bolts out of the rear of the drive shaft, because now I still need to break the front bolts loose, but there's nothing keeping the drive shaft from spinning. So I'm gonna go ahead, put a bolt or 2 back in the diff flange, and then hopefully finally find the manpower to crack the bolts loose on the front so I can get the drive shaft out of the way. So after struggling for probably longer than I'd ever like to admit, I got the 3 drive shaft bolts out of the way. And obviously, here is my drive shaft. Probably the 3 hardest non-seized bolts I've ever had to take off of this E30. I don't know what the torque value is on these, but just between the torque and not really having good leverage, they were a pain to get off. I guess if the car was in the air and I could get a full swing of a breaker bar, probably would have helped, but any longer bar for more leverage I have hits the floor of the garage, so I need the car a lot higher, but my jack gets maxed out a little bit higher than what it's at right now. But anyway, these are out of the way. I think there's 5 or 6 bolts holding the gas tank on, and then a few more hoses probably to pop loose. We got the clamps off earlier, but then we'll have to pop them loose, and then the filter is probably still hosed up and clamped good. So a few more things to get taken care of, but I think I'm gonna start releasing the gas tank down, and then as things become tight, we'll go ahead and pop those hoses off. We're getting close. We're really getting close. It's a lot more work than I thought to get the drive shaft out, but we're making progress. First look at the gas tank coming out. This is the, I guess, the driver's side, and where I think that leak that I originally talked about, I think was coming out of the seam here. Gas tank definitely was a pain to get out. We'll slide it all the way out and then kind of do a final overview of it. I cut the evap tube. You probably can't see it from this angle. I cut the evap tube because I couldn't really access the hose clamp with the subframe in the way. And then that probably caused my hardest part was then that tube's not very pliable, so it was catching in between, I guess, the body and the subframe, and that was kind of the last bit, just holding everything on. Yeah, quick view at some more rust along this seam. Okay, the tank is out and I drained all of the gas out. I dumped the tank into this pail just because of, I guess, the wide surface area. Let me catch most of it, and then that went into a bucket. It settled in the bucket, and then it went into, I had to get a new can, but it went into my larger gas can. It's about 6 gallons in total came out of the tank, which is probably the most I've had in the E30 in a very long time. But the bucket where I said it's settled, you can see just, I guess it's rust particles or just dirt, junk, grime, whatever. But that was all in the gas tank. And obviously poured it out and it settled into there before I poured off the good gasoline to be used in the lawnmower this summer. This is more of the passenger side. The seam doesn't look great over here, but it's still intact. And then I guess where this, I think it's an evap line, you can see I cut it off. Where that attaches to the gas tank started to get pretty rusty and it looks pretty bad. The lines across the top look okay. I'll have to show the lines in the car that are, I don't know how they're even held together. And then I've pointed it out, but this is where I think my tank was leaking. And actually when I had it in the car, when I was taking it out, it kind of, fell to that side first. And then I spilt some gas near that jack stand and it was coming out of the seam in the gas tank. So definitely a good time and a good idea to yank this out to replace it for something new and fully sealed. And like I said, I cut this back line to, because I couldn't get to this hose clamp down in here. Doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great where it connects. Overall, glad to get this tank out of the way, and we'll get something new in and something hopefully a lot more safe to drive with. This is the line that I referenced that I had no idea how it's even held together. You can see how badly it's rusted. Runs along the top and was one of those hoses, or I guess lines that go into the gas tank, but once it comes down into this corner, which is where I've also had a lot of
brake rust, so brake issues, so maybe the brake lines caused some of this rust. But again, this is where I had some of my fuel leaks. But man, these lines are horrendous. I have no idea how they held any pressure. Overall, where the tank was, the car looks pretty good. There's just a little bit of kind of ugly rust right in the middle. Hopefully I can just kind of clean it up. I have to go back and look to see which brackets actually connected in here to see how critical. I'm sure it's an important part, but we'll have to see how much work I'll need to do to kind of clean that up.
Yeah, at this point it is job done. I have parts everywhere, so I still have to clean up. Overall, when you think about, oh, I'll just drop the gas tank, it's 5 bolts and a couple hoses, doesn't seem like that much work, but then, you know, getting the drive shaft out of the way, making sure everything kind of clears, it was a lot more work than I anticipated, but still, I guess overall in the scheme of things, not a terrible job. I did it over a couple nights. And yeah, it'll be some time before anything goes back in. I'm gonna kind of take stock of everything that's bad, most everything, order new parts, tackle all of the rust kind of running in that area, and you know, really fill the system before putting any new parts back in. But yeah, should be basically a full new fuel system going in. And with that, thanks for watching.